Welcome back. The video presentation for this is a call to arms. Just to kind of catch you up, a quick review. Um, the colonists in North America within the British colonies are upset that Britain isn't allowing them to have a voice or a say in things, and Britain, everything goes back to Britain needing to get more revenue to pay for the defense of the colonies, to help pay for the war, the 7 Years' War, the French and Indian War in North America, as it was called, to maintain those colonies under the possession of the British. Um, tensions are rising, and we saw an increase with that in Boston with the Boston Massacre, the Boston Tea Party. Um, Britain passes the coercive acts. They're trying to uh, force the colonies to get in line with what they feel they need to do. They close the port of Boston. They tell the city of Boston, the colony of Massachusetts, specifically the city of Boston, that hey, you can't run things, so we're going to send somebody over there to be the provincial governor. So the colonists, still to this point, are not seeing themselves as we want to separate. They just want to get this figured out. They want to maintain, uh, basically go back to the status quo, with the one exception being we need representation. So, some background: in 1774, there's a meeting in Philadelphia. It later becomes known as the First Continental Congress, and part of the reason behind that is they had a second meeting, so then that becomes known as the Second Continental Congress. 12 of the 13 colonies send representatives. Um, Patrick Henry, who is within the Virginia House of Burgesses, and he was somebody who really argued for that the fact that we are the ones who speak for other Virginians, and if anybody's going to lay a tax on them, it's going to be the colony of Virginia. We're not going to allow Great Britain to do that. Patrick Henry argues for unity against British control. He doesn't want each colony kind of doing their own thing. He says, hey, we need to stand together on this, otherwise they're not going to listen to us. They're going to look at a single colony as being dissident, or not wanting to toe the line with what they wanted them to do. So, Patrick Henry. Um, so the delegates vote. All of them want a repeal of the new British taxes. They want Britain to repeal those, take them off the books. And they also do something kind of interesting here. They call on the residents to arm themselves. So we've been talking about how they're not looking for a separation from Great Britain at this point, but they're telling um, other colonists, hey, uh, you want to arm yourself, all right, just in case something breaks out. We want to defend what we have. So we have these colonial militias. I thought this picture really represented that well. They're just everyday Joes, they're farmers, they're stonemasons, cobblers, whatever it might be, silversmiths, and they form these militias, which were, it was a long-standing tradition within the colonial towns, and they would be used to defend the towns against what maybe they saw as Native American insurgency, um, if French were encroaching on them, if it was a border town, these folks would get together and defend the town then. So we have the militia. Fighting's going to begin. So we get a little background on this. Most felt fighting would begin in New England. They had a pretty good hunch. That's where most of the protests were occurring. You have the Sons of Liberty, called Boston Home. Uh, the minute, the militia is going to become known as the Minutemen, because they're telling them, hey, you need to be ready to go uh, at a moment's notice, at a minute's notice. So they get uh, attached to the name Minutemen. Great Britain, they've already sent troops there because they're trying to uh, break up the tension, get things back to normal. They're going to send more troops. So initially, thousands of them are stationed around Boston. Here we have Boston. And then they're ordered to go out and collect weapons. And they'd kind of been getting some information, whether it was from spies or people sympathetic to Great Britain. They get information that there's there's a stash of arms in Concord. So that's where they head. And then we have a guy, Paul Revere. Paul Revere, Midnight Ride. We're aware of who he is. He's going to alert the Minutemen to these troop movements. He's going to say, hey, they're headed your way. So we get Lexington and Concord. The militia or Minutemen are waiting for the British in Lexington. There's a scuffle. The two sides meet. 8 colonial militia were killed, and the British continue on to Concord because their job is to break up this store or stash of arms. They run into resistance. And there's a short battle. The British were turned away. And then the militia badgers, I like that term, the badger. They badger their retreat. They hid and fired upon the British from hidden positions. So I thought this was a good image. It shows them behind the walls. And take note of how the British are moving. We see that they're in these nice columns. They have these nice marching lines. The officers are high on horseback. They're easily identified. And then the colonists are going to sit behind these walls, and they're basically going to try and pick off the officers to cause disorganization among the troops that are marching. And it's a really good plan, and it works really well. And they basically are able to get the British to turn away from their objective. So from the colonial standpoint, it's looked at as a success. And then we're going to start to see some increases in military action now. So armed conflict is going to spread. It leads to what's known as the Battle of Bunker Hill. It's kind of a misnomer. Most of the fighting took place on Breeds Hill. But the colonials lose the battle, but they show resolve. They show that, hey, we can stick with these guys. We end up losing, but it's not as if they run away and retreat right away. They did a fantastic job of getting it ready for battle. We have the significant quote comes out of this: "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." So they show some backbone, and it's going to force people to choose sides. So you're going to have those who side with Great Britain are known as loyalists. They're loyal to the crown, they're loyal to the empire. And then those that side with the colonies are going to become known as patriots. So we have these two sides now, the loyalists versus the patriots. And that's going to create some more internal conflict further down the road within the Revolutionary War itself, which is what we'll get into next time. So thanks for joining me again.